This is terrible. Absolutely terrible. Nothing about this is good. Not one thing.
It all ends in me.
God, I hate this. I hate this. This is terrible.
Alright, this is gonna be a quick one, I promise. Under 15 minutes, I'm timing myself. So at the time of me recording this, I just finished the game, and yeah, it's a glorified walking simulator. Yeah, I mean, you read it in the title. That's exactly what this is. But I guess the real question is it a good one? Kinda. I guess what you should know going in is that Bloober Team is an independent studio, but they're one of those indie teams that has like amazing graphic artists, right? But no game designers. It's one of those. Essentially the type of people who should be making art house films or like CGI animated shorts, but instead they're making video games for some reason. Now, I'm not going to insult people who enjoy these types of games, okay? There is a place for them, even if I can hardly call them video games. They are technically, there is a failure state in this, and I'd say that's just enough to make it qualify. But really, there are basically no gameplay mechanics in this game, okay? So, you can walk, you can jog, you can use your generic AAA detective sense that's in a bunch of games for some reason, and you can do Spirit World shit. So, we'll get into the Spirit World shit in just a bit, but basically, you're going to be playing this for the story. And honestly, you can make your decision completely based on that, and also the fact that you're either going to be playing this through Game Pass, which is definitely most likely the way you're going to play this game, or you're going to buy it for $50. $50. And this game is 6 hours. I don't care how much work you put into this. It's a 6-hour walking simulator for $50. So honestly, don't fucking buy it. Don't fucking buy it, okay? Rent a month of Game Pass and blow through this in like 2 days or 1 day if you really want to binge through it. And you'll get your story. You'll get your decent story game, right? I think the spoiler discussion section I'm going to put at the end, because with a game like this, it's kind of hard to actually review it if you don't talk about the story, right? So I'll just spoil the story and just say what I think at the end. But basically, you are a medium, which is, essentially a person who can communicate with ghosts. And, of course, the ghost world is a completely parallel realm to our own, or however it works. They don't really explain it. And the main character, Marianne, her ability is to send ghosts to the afterlife. So, basically, the spoiler-free version of the plot is that you get called up by this guy named Thomas, who tells you to come to Niwa Resort. Oh yeah, and this is a Polish game, by the way. No relation to CD Projekt Red. I feel like I should say. And the whole thing's dubbed in English, which I guess is pretty obvious. You could just watch the trailer. But you go investigate this resort that had a massacre happen at it, and essentially you discover the secrets of your childhood, right? The actual gameplay sections basically just consist of 1, walking or jogging, and you better fucking believe I was jogging as much as I possibly could. Solving puzzles, which are fairly simple, but some are also pretty good. They're mostly just average tier puzzles. It's just something to make it feel like you're playing a video game instead of just, walking. And then occasionally there are hide and seek sections with the monster of the game, with a bit of linear chase sequences thrown in there. So the main highlight of this game, and probably the only reason anybody is interested in it at all, is there are certain sections of this game where you can play both the spirit world and the normal world at the same time. Essentially, Marianne, unlike other mediums, her normal form and spirit form exist together. We learn later in the game that Thomas essentially had to develop a split personality disorder to send his spirit form into the spirit realm. And so these little sections are really cool visually, but also kind of distracting. I mean, you've essentially got 2 screens on the same screen. It's like if you were to play an old GameCube split screen game, but you have to stare at both screens at the same time. I mean, sure, you don't have to interact with both at the same time ever, but, you know, if you want to find all the secrets, you got to be flicking your eyes between both sides of the screen constantly, you know? But it's a cool effect, but it's also something that makes the game a lot more performance intensive than it probably should be. Again, this is an indie company, so it's definitely not meant to be an insult, but parts of this game, you know, look, PS4, which is fine, but a lot of the character models kind of look like a late PS3, you know? And so, I'm guessing how the engine works is that it's rendering both scenes at the same time in any area that is meant to have a spirit form, whether or not you're actually there, instead of just loading it. So, again, a game that should probably run perfectly fine on RX 5700 actually does not. You know, it has quite a few performance issue moments, but nothing that'll really hurt the experience that much. You know, you can just turn the graphics down if you're on PC. And I imagine if you're playing this on Xbox Series X, I'm sure it's fine. But Series S, I could probably see having some performance issues. Pretty much everything else that you do in the game is just examining objects and like listening to memories from said objects. And it's pretty linear. It's pretty fucking linear. There are some little sandboxy sections where you can just like look around and get a little bit of more story info. But honestly, the background of the hotel doesn't really matter that much. It does connect into the main plot, but it's basically just window dressing for the discover your past story that this thing is going for. Because of course, Marianne is an orphan, but, you know, not really. And also, she has memories that she's blocked off in her brain that we learn soon enough. And you talk to this little girl, and obviously she's pretty important. And honestly, there's not a whole lot more to say about the game. I don't know, it's just boring. I don't know what to tell you, it's boring. The story's not really that interesting. It takes about 3 hours, so yeah, halfway through the game, for the story to start getting interesting. And even at that point, this really does just feel like it should have been a movie, because everything connects into the characters' stories, like a soap opera, you know? There's no wider universe that we're exploring here. It's just one contained story. I mean, this is essentially like a David Cage game, but with even less interactivity and no player choice. So yeah, should you buy this game? No. Should you play it if you already have Game Pass? Only if you like walking simulators. Yeah, that's about as far as my recommendation goes. I'm disappointed in myself to say I've actually played like 6 or 7 walking simulators at this point, even though I don't like them. I don't know what's wrong with me, but here I am. I will say this is one of the better ones I played. It just is absurdly overpriced. Alright, so onto the spoilers. So basically, you discover that Thomas is your father, the person who called you to this place. And there's this guy in the hospital, Richard, who keeps getting mentioned over and over again. And it turns out, essentially, that your father was once a patient at, like, the mental health part of this resort thing. Like, it's kind of complicated. But basically, he eventually went off to college to be an architect. And when he came back, Richard was old. And okay, so I'm not going to be that type of guy who does like, oh, trigger warning, oh no, watch out. Even though the game itself has a trigger warning at the beginning, which I find kind of hilarious. But let's just say, this has some dark themes. Very dark themes in this game. And I'll likely have to censor out the word, but it's, you know, it's a hard R word. And that's pretty much, I think that gives it away. The context will give it away as well. But essentially, Thomas invites Richard into his house, you know, to take care of him because he's like an elderly person or whatever. And he Mamma mia! One of Thomas's daughters. And you find out later in the story that daughter is Marianne's sister, Lillian, right? And that's pretty much the basis of the whole story is around that event. And there's a few sequences where you play as Thomas, and you find out that all of this was happening during Soviet occupation of Poland, essentially. My history's not that great, so I don't know how long that happened. But yeah, let's just say the government was investigating this type of shit because, you know, commies and all that. And this communist dude, who is just a sick fuck, And it just kind of shows you where Western society is going, because tell me if this sounds familiar to some recent real-world events. This guy, Henry, who's like a KGB agent, essentially, he turned in his own father to the government for, I don't even remember what he did, to be honest. I already forgot, even though I just found out yesterday. But because his father was mean to him once or twice in the butcher shop. And that's as far into detail as it goes, by the way. At least Richard kind of gets a sob story as to why he's like a pedo.
Whoa!
But Henry doesn't even get that. He's just a sick fuck. He's literally one of those communist people who the government is their parents, essentially, you know? Which is happening in the real world right now. So, yeah, Western society's fucked. I'm not going to get any more political or I'll get in trouble. But essentially, this guy fucking burns down Thomas's house with his daughters inside. And the only way that the kids survive is because Lily releases the demon inside of her. The pedo demon, essentially. Created by the trauma of the event. Oh yeah, and by the way, another story detail that maybe I missed a note or something, but it was never explained. But somehow Marianne's powers manifested when she was a child, and that killed their mother. I must have missed something because I never saw the explanation for that exactly. But that led to Lilianne resenting her sister, and combining that with the
Game over
thing, essentially the monster that chases you throughout the game is Lily's demon. So that's pretty fucking hardcore, I gotta be honest. It's fucked up. But basically, you're running from this demon the whole game throughout the hospital and like campgrounds and shit and all these other places. And, you know, eventually you get to the end of the game. You find out your sister has been living in a bunker all this time by herself because essentially Thomas, their father, you know, locked her up to try and keep the demon from getting out all this time. And essentially forced her to live in a bunker and have no life, while he abandoned his other daughter to an orphanage or whatever. And yeah, basically, this vision that you receive several times in the game about a girl on the pier dying, you find out that didn't happen in the past. That was your sister essentially broadcasting that message to you because she wants to die so that you can finally release the demon. And the game just kind of ends with a gunshot, so you don't even know for sure if Marianne shoots herself or shoots Lily, because she threatened to shoot herself as well. I mean, I'm going to assume that she shot Lily, because that just makes for a better story, if you ask me. And we also seem to find out that the spirit version of Thomas is still alive, because it's implied that he sacrifices himself to buy you more time, or whatever. And we don't even know what happened to the normal version of Thomas, because he's supposed to be the one who called you on the phone to summon you to the resort. So I don't know if this is kind of like sequel bait or something. It seems like sequel bait anyway. But I don't know if this should really have a sequel. You know, I don't know. It just kind of, the story is mostly done at this point. I suppose you can do more with this character, investigating ghosts and stuff. But there's no way I'm going to play a sequel if there is one. It's just going to be another walking simulator with light puzzles. And what more can you actually do with that? So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I said my thoughts on the game. Probably shouldn't play it. And I hope this is not an early contender for worst games of 2021. Maybe I need to play a lot more like new releases just so that this doesn't end up on the worst list. But other than that, in the background, I'm still working on that top 5 best games video. It'll make sense when it comes out why it's not already out. That's the most I'll say about it. And the parts of the video may be somewhat controversial. I'm going to try and make it blend well with the rest of the video. Feel free to give me your thoughts when that comes out. You know, I'm fine with any legit criticism. Not fucking insults disguised as criticism, but we've talked about that already. We've talked about that a couple times in rant videos. But other than that, yeah, I don't know. Far Cry is probably coming out after top 5 best. Just because I don't really feel like working on Resident Evil 5 right now, because I still got other content I have to complete in the game. so I'm not really ready to review that. But I'm most of the way through Far Cry 1, so that should be coming out maybe a week from this video's release, a little more than a week, something like that. And actually, the way I might do this is I think I'm going to release Far Cry 1, then do Witcher 1, then Resident Evil 5, and then, I don't know, I'll probably put up another poll and see what you guys want to see, I guess. Alright, see you next time.